Live now. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show on another beautiful day here in England. The summer is here, the sun is up, and we'll probably get at least another week of it before 3 months of rain. So enjoy it with us here on the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm here tonight with Mr. Stop Spamming, as usual. And
hello. How's it going on this beautiful summer's day?
Excellent. I like the energy. See, we're really positive tonight because Subboor's got us really kind of in the right frame of mind. We also have Nick with us tonight. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hello. We'll be testing the audience's patience twice, so I wish them luck.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Ihsan will be showing up at some point as well, but I haven't heard from him. But we're going to kick off anyway. So we're doing two things tonight. We're going to later on, the second part of the show, Nick is going to be doing a presentation on essentially some of the moral dilemmas around being kind of like piously Muslim and medical treatments that you might get. So what's halal and haram? And you're going to be specifically focusing on heart transplants from animals. So
small correction, kidney. So the actual article is about a kidney transplant, but this is just animal transplants in general. What's the
okay. Oh well, I put a pig with a heart on the thumbnail, but it can apply to any internal organ. So Nick's going to be doing a presentation on that in the second half. The thing we're going to kick off with tonight is Subboor Ahmad. Now, Subboor, for anyone who doesn't know, is a long-term Dawa apologist, and he fancies himself something of a scientist. He's obviously not. Hi to the people in the chat. Hi, April Cox. Hi, Quran Only fans. Yeah, he sees himself as a bit of a scientist. He is nowhere near it. He pretends he understands evolutionary biology. He doesn't. And he has a particular bone of contention with Dawkins and uses any opportunity to try and have a go at him and critique him. And in this video that we're about to do, it's so boring from yeah. Oh well, I mean, he's in this case, I wouldn't say he's boring. He's just stupid. But
Quack. Come on.
But he's yeah. So basically, in this video, he's reacting to Richard Dawkins, who himself was reacting to a clip from Mohammed Hijab. Now, the original video is Dawkins looking for a bunch of clips about creationism and stuff like that and other issues, and he's answering the questions. Now, this has triggered Subboor. It is basically partly in relation to Mohammed Hijab and also some stuff that Dawkins said on Piers Morgan's show, and it's related to the Big Bang Theory. Now, just to let people know, Dawkins is a humble guy, and whenever he's asked questions about physics, he will defer to them because it's not a speciality, as all real scientists do. But he obviously gave his opinions and his thoughts on these things, and this is really pissed Subboor off. So that's essentially the nature of this. It's quite a short video. It's only about 8 minutes, so it shouldn't take us too long. And we're going to
drastic. I just want to mention about Subboor, the hypocrisy here. He's not a biologist, but talks about biology and evolution all the time. But God forbid when Richard Dawkins has a couple of points that he wants to add, it's the end of the world. So I don't really find this guy amusing at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all these Dawah apologists. They all pretend that they've got expertise in areas which they don't. So Mohammed Hijab thinks he's, some literary scholar and some philosopher, and Subboor thinks he's an evolutionary biologist. Hamza Sortzes has the same delusions. Yeah, they all do this, and they're so arrogant. And we're gonna see a little bit of that in this video anyway. So. Yeah, hopefully Ihsan will join us later, but if not, I'm sure we can get through this. And if you two are ready, I will play the video now. So should we get going on this?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, and just the usual rules. Just tell me if you want to stop at any point to make a comment, and we'll get cracking on this.
This morning, I saw a clip of Mohammed Hijab being reacted to by Richard Dawkins on his official YouTube channel. A very strange thing to wake up to. But anyway, in this clip, Dawkins is saying a few things which I want to respond to.
What happened before, say you go for the Big Bang argument?
Well, physicists are debating this. I'm not a physicist, but they're debating it. My point is that they don't know, and I don't know, and you don't know, and it doesn't help to postulate a God that did it.
How do you know that he doesn't know if you don't know? I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. And he does this all the time. If you're an ignorant person, then how do you know that someone else's ignorance is identical to your ignorance if you're ignorant? Having your epistemological cake and eating it as well at the same time. How can you have both? If you're ignorant, then don't be an arrogant, ignorant person. Because if you're an agnostic, which of course you call yourself an atheist. I mean, Richard Dawkins calls himself an atheist, but in reality, he's an agnostic. So he's saying, I don't know, but you don't know as well. But then if you don't know, how do you know that he doesn't know if you don't know? It's arrogant ignorance. Let's just call you what you are, Richard Dawkins. You're an arrogant man because you're postulating what other people do or do not know, but also you're an ignorant man because agnosticism is basically ignorance. That's all it is.
I said a sort of
Yeah, so the usual. So I'm just going to quickly stop it there because it's usual kind of nonsense talk there from Hijab. But first of all, he's talking as if you can't use the label agnostic and atheist. Well, you can. You can say that basically, from the point of view of what you think is most likely, which is how Dawkins does it. I think he's got this scale for how likely he thinks that a God exists, and it's almost, at 0%, but not quite. So in all functional ways, he's an atheist because he doesn't have a belief in a God. But he will refer to himself as agnostic or not knowing for sure, because that's just the humble position to take. That's just the scientific position to take. You don't know 100%. So that's not arrogance. That's being very humble.
I actually have a question for that as well. Like, that's quite the projection of hypocrisy there, because Dawkins is saying none of us know, and Hijab is the one that's saying that we do know it's God, and he's kind of projecting his own arrogance onto Dawkins, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And as Quran only fans are saying, you can be an agnostic atheist. And to be honest, if there are theists, the more honest theists will also say the same thing. They say, I have a belief in God, but am I 100% true? There are I'm sure it's true. There are some theists who will say no. So you can be an agnostic theist. I think it is the sort of honest position to take. But you can also say, yes, I am still very confident of my belief, even if I'm not 100% sure. So you can still use a label, atheist, theist, etc. So it's just Muhammad demonstrating his complete freaking ignorance as usual.
Yeah, it is. I used to start off the Gin and Tonic show by defining what an atheist is. I always used to say, look, a theist is somebody who believes, that's why they are a believer, who believes that there is a personal God. An atheist does not. The end. That's it. There's nothing more. It's just that I do not believe what a theist believes. And that's it. There's nothing more to it. Then they come up with a new atheist who says, well, I can with confidence and I'm 100% sure and blah, blah, which is bullshit. You can't. And this is exactly the point that Professor Dawkins is making. There are things that we as mankind do not know. We do not know what the origin is of where the Big Bang came from. We don't have that information. And this is why he's being very honest. And he says there is a discussion being held about this. And this is something that is beyond the capabilities, the mental capabilities of Hijab. He just can't fathom it.
Absolutely. And Dawkins' response here is very good. So I'll click into it and play it now.
Standard rhetorical device, I don't know and you don't know and physicists don't know. Well, it's true that I don't know and physicists don't know. And if physicists don't know, then Piers Morgan most certainly doesn't know. And therefore, although it's correct that I don't actually know whether Piers Morgan knows anything, I'm pretty confident in saying that if the physicists don't know the answer to that question, he doesn't either.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Exactly. I mean, it is completely reasonable to assume that if physicists, while they've got various models that they put forward, they will not say this is what happened or this didn't happen, etc. They will say, look, we've got various models, we're pursuing lines of evidence, etc. If physicists are at that point, we're damn sure that a bloody talk show host who is completely ignorant of all science is going to know less than the physicist. So, of course, that's a reasonable assumption to make.
But Drastic, do you know who knows? There's three people.
Do you know who knows who doesn't know who knows? I mean,
yeah, it's Subboor Ahmad knows, Muhammad Hijab knows, and the Prophet Muhammad knows.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Ultimately, that's the point they're coming from. They're basically saying because scientists and kind of atheists in general will tend to default to the position of, there are some things that we don't know. They think because they've got the arrogance to say, well, our book told us that this is why it's here, because of God. they think that trumps it, rather than us just saying, well, yeah, that's not good evidence. That's just a claim in an old book. That's it. So, but yet he thinks because they say it with such confidence and such arrogance that trumps it. It doesn't.
This is the point. This is what annoys me so much, because people like William Lane Craig or Hamza Sources, they will go and they have the arrogance, can you believe it, of talking to physicists and then saying, you don't have an answer to the Kalam cosmological argument. Excuse me, it's primitive. And these idiots get shown to the door every single time, and they will go and repeat their bullshit. This is what annoys me so much, that they don't learn, and yet they display this arrogance, this air of superiority, which is not there. And wow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the Kalam has been debunked a million times. I've heard it's such a bad argument.
Yeah, but they're still reading it.
I just want to read this from Quran Only fans. He says, "Hi chaps, this guy owes me 5 hours of my life because I listened to his whole debate with Skydive Phil, where he must have said the word homology 1,000 times. I know the exact debate you're talking about, and credit to Skydive Phil for not headbutting him during that debate because he was so annoying. But, yeah, I feel you. I feel your pain. Anyways, let's crack on and see what Subboor has got in response to this.
So let's stop pretending to be humble, Mr. Dawkins. You're somebody that does claim to know. You claim to know that if life has arisen in other parts of the universe, it must have been a Darwinian process. You make that categorical claim in your interviews. You make that
I'm sorry.
I got a response.
It makes me so angry when I hear bullshit like this. He is outright lying. Nobody has ever made that claim, and yet he repeats it again and again and again. I have told him myself, I don't know how many times, that this is not true. And still, years later, he will still repeat it. It makes me so mad to hear this.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that is. Yeah, I don't remember hearing from Dawkins that he's absolutely categorically sure that evolution would be the mechanism. Darwinian, evolution would be the mechanism on every other planet. I think he thinks it's highly likely, again, because it is the method.
He's talking about the origin. Just listen to what Subboor says. Dawkins was saying if life came about on another planet, it would then most probably follow a evolutionary process.
But that's the thing, most probably. Blah, blah, blah.
And this is the difference. But Subboor is talking that life will originate due to evolution. It's not the case.
Well, yeah, that's also a fallacy. Nick, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I like how he talks about Richard Dawkins' his arrogance and how he has a 100% certain answer when only one of these two people are willing to bet their foreskin for an answer.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's play on a bit.
Categorical claim in your book, A Devil's Chaplain. You claim you do know that Darwinism can actually be applied not only to biology but to physics. That is, in fact, your argument in the God delusion. So
it can be applied. In other words, he believes that this is the likely mechanism on other planets, but he's not saying he knows for certain. So again, this is just bullshit.
No, but cosmological evolution is a fact. You can see how different stars, how planets, how moons, how they evolve. And it's just a way, it's an analogy. It's not that it follows the same, because he's always using this term Darwinian, because he thinks this was like a Newton sort of gravity is responsible. No, Newton is responsible for gravity, and of course Darwin is responsible for evolution. They are too stupid to understand what they are actually saying.
No, but he also uses Darwinian as in, as if there's been no advancement in the field since 1860.
Yeah, Darwin has nothing.
Even
to
though
do
we've got all
with
this mass ton of other evidence from genetics and other fields.
It's like trying to argue Newtonian physics to this day. Well, it brought out new theories and such, and Isaac Newton's one of the smartest men to have ever existed. But there's a lot of new physics that happened after Newtonian physics, right? And the same thing with Darwin's evolutionary theory.
Newton never claimed to know how fish came about.
Yeah, but I mean, it to be honest, it's just one of these terms he tries to use to undermine evolution by kind of saying it's Darwinian. It's evolution, and it's gone far beyond what Darwin. I mean, yes, the basic structure is still based on Darwin's work, but it's been massively expanded, and all sorts of different new information and refining of the theory has gone about in the last 150 years, and he's basically like pretending as if it's not the case. So he's just an idiot.
And it's only evolutionists that believe it.
Anyway, let's play a little bit more.
Oh, certain things, and you don't actually want to defend them. So isn't it better for you to stick your flag in and say, yeah, I'm willing to die on this hill? I do actually know that design is an illusion. I do actually know that Darwinism can be applied to the universe. I do actually know that God almost certainly doesn't exist. Why don't you just
Can we
stick
pause
to
there?
the claim?
Yeah, I mean,
Can we
he
pause
does
there?
say all those things, though. He just says, yeah, I'm not I'm not absolutely 100%, but I am pretty much. I can't remember the scale he used. I think it's like a scale of 1 to 6, maybe, and he puts it as 5.9 or something, or maybe it's scale
1
1
to 7, and he's a 6. Yeah.
Or no, I think he might be even a 6.9, but he's left open that gap. But like Subboor's acting as if he doesn't defend his position with that kind of strength, and it's like this has been a massive part of Richard Dawkins' public persona, is going out and saying that yes, this is the most likely reality that we're living in.
But that's not certainty. No, Drastic, this is the problem. It's not certainty. He's not saying, I'm putting down the flag here that I'm 100% sure, because he's a scientist. And
Absolutely.
a scientist will never say I am 100% sure, because there's always the possibility that I'm wrong. And this is what this guy does not understand, because he says, I am 100% sure that my God exists and it must have created everything, and Adam and Eve, and Adam was 30 meters tall. And yes, that is 100% true. This is what he expects now from somebody else, because his thinking is so limited that he can only think in these kind of terms, and his brain will not accept anything else.
Sorry, Nick, were you gonna?
Well, I was just going to say, dying on a hill is very anti-scientific, right? Because aren't you supposed to change your beliefs, or not beliefs, but change the answer if new evidence is provided?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. So I mean, there certainly are scientists who will be very much wedded to a particular model or particular theory which they believe is more likely. But yeah, that is the default position, is that I could at any point potentially be proven wrong or shifted to a different position, or refine a theory to make it more accurate. That is always going to be the default of any decent scientist. And as Stocks, you're saying, it's just he can't think in those terms because he's a creationist and a fundamentalist. Anyway, so let's a little bit more from Mr. Subboor.
Claims that you've been making over many, many years, and fight for them, defend them, argue for them, articulate your responses, rather than just making these short clips in which you're trying to say, well, I'm not saying I know and I'm not sure if other people know. No, you do know certain things. So let's stick to a few things that you've maintained for a number of years. You haven't really changed on these things.
But the thing is,
design being
if I can just explain something here, Richard Dawkins is in his 80s. He's probably spent 40, 50, 60 years even researching certain things, longer than Subboor has been alive. And there are certain things that he probably knows with a fact, but he also knows that he can be proven wrong. So he's always in a place where he knows what he knows what he doesn't know, and he's willing to articulate that. It's just Subboor that doesn't want to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've accepted that design is a good research heuristic, but you've categorically said it is an illusion. And you've also stated that design in the physical universe is an illusion, just like we have design being an illusion in the biological world. How do you know that? Why don't you defend those beliefs?
He has defended those positions, and he's explained how we know that. We know that in terms of the facts of evolution. I mean, what do you think Dawkins has been doing for all these decades? Like Nick said, I mean, he's the most famous probably science communicator of the past 30 years, 40 years maybe. As famous probably as Carl Sagan was back in the 70s and 80s. It's ridiculous to claim that he has not defended these positions. I don't know. It's like Subboor's built half his channel off doing these stupid fucking reaction videos to him, and now he's claiming, "Oh, why don't you're not defending these positions?" Of course he is. Again, he's just not doing it with this 100% certainty on every little detail kind of thing.
Okay, Jesse, there's one thing that I want to point out, which I don't know, I've pointed out so many times that maybe it's I should repeat it. It's very easy for an atheist to put themselves into the mindset of a theist. The other way around is impossible. So I can imagine everything that he can imagine, but he can't do the other way around. And this is something that people tend to forget. And this is something that is so obvious, but a lot of people just have not come across this kind of idea.
Although, actually, I mean, I do agree with that in general, and I would also say it's probably because a lot of us grew up religious, at least nominally, and you know,
I haven't. I wasn't.
Oh, lucky you. I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I mean, I know what it's like to have a genuine belief as a kid in a God, and I also know what it's like not to believe that. But to be fair, right, I'll give one small caveat, and that stops, because Subboor himself did admit that if he didn't believe in Islam, then he would accept everything about evolution, because he recognizes that, yes, it is the best model if you take away his a priori belief in Allah. So he has. So I mean, I'm not saying he understands what it's like to be in that mentality, but he has acknowledged
exactly the mindset. Yeah.
But he has actually acknowledged that the only reason he's actually against this, the only reason is that he already believes that Islam is true.
And the only book
that completely invalidates his position as being completely dishonest, basically, because he's willing to admit that, yeah, actually, it is a completely convincing theory, but I already believe in God, so I've got to argue against it. So which I just find hilarious. Sorry, we were going to say something.
Paragraph 1, God is always right. Paragraph 2, if it doesn't apply, automatically apply paragraph 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It is a devastating concession, April. And it's really annoying because I really want to find that video clip, because it was from some years ago. If anybody knows the video where he says that and they want to drop it in the link, I'd love to get that, because it'd be good to have that as a kind of backup for certain purposes in the future. But I can't remember where he said it, but it's stuck in my mind. And yeah, and there are a bunch of people who remember this, so it's not just me making it up. But yeah, I just think it just undermines his whole position. Anyway, should we push on a little bit?
Rather than sidestepping and pretending like you are humble, and we know that you're not. Also, something I was thinking about is that Philip Johnson actually challenged you, and he is the father of the intelligent design movement. In fact, you could say he is the one who's galvanized even your career when it comes to discussions on creationism, because of his responses to yourself. Yet when he
yeah, sorry, I just for those who don't know, this is one of the co-founders, this Philip Johnson guy, of I think it's the Discovery Institute. And so yeah, he is right to kind of say he is somewhat like the father of this intelligent design stuff, but he's not a scientist. He's a legal scholar or something. So why would Dawkins want to debate somebody on science who has no knowledge about science and is just basically repackaging creationism? Like, Dawkins actually wants to have serious conversations, not idiotic conversations. So yeah, the fact, like, he thinks this is some big own on Richard Dawkins that he didn't want to talk to some schmuck who doesn't know anything about science. I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Challenged you in the early 1990s, you refused to engage with him. You refused to engage with William Lane Craig when it came to the God delusion. You've been making remarks about other intelligent design proponents like William Dembski and misrepresenting him. When you do actually have an engagement with people that disagree with you, like John Lennox, Dennis Noble, Lynn Margulis, you decisively lose. So rather than
absolute crap, all of these stupid ID proponents that have some kind of scientific background, none of them are ever in evolutionary biology. I mean, Dennis Noble, who he thinks is actually an evolutionary biologist, and who has basically just used his arguments as his own in his so-called book that Subboor wrote. This guy is not an evolutionary biologist. I think he's a physicist or something. So I mean, it's within the biological field, but it's not evolutionary biology. And he's been torn to pieces. Dennis Noble and all these other guys he's represented, they've all been wrecked in terms of, because what they do is you get actual evolutionary biologists go through what these guys say and say, no, look, he's got a fundamental lack of understanding on the basics of it. And Subboor ignores all that just because these guys are saying what he wants to hear.
Like Lennox. Lennox is just an old fool. He's a mathematician. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least Dennis Noble has got some actual real scientific background. But yeah, all these other ones, they're either in other disciplines. They'll be like in the humanities, or like mathematics in the case of Neil Lennox, etc. None of them actually have any proper understanding of evolutionary biology, which is why you will never get an actual evolutionary biologist, as far as I know. I mean, maybe there's one or two out there who've supported this because they've got a God belief, but anyone who's properly studied the field, as far as
they trotted them out in the Dover trial, and they got so horribly ass-whooped. It was incredible. And even the court, the judge laughed them out and said, listen, are you fucking mad? Get out of here. Get out of my court.
And I think they did. Yeah, that was the
it was the Dover trial.
They were trying to basically slip intelligent design into schools.
Yeah.
And apparently even the judge was a Christian, I think, and even he said this is just religion that you're trying to put in there.
This was
even regular, which I'll give credit to, because I think there are a lot of regular Christians who are also scientists who do respect the difference between putting your personal ideology into it and what science actually tells you. So I don't want to make it seem like we're dunking on all theists or something. I mean, we're talking about these particular either evangelical Christian fundamentalists or these Darwin.
Drastic. Just to bring up a point, I think like the average religious person probably just uses religion as a way to like be peaceful at home, but it doesn't, because a lot of people are religious, but then when they actually go into a laboratory or something, they're not going to see bacteria. They're pharmacists.
Yeah.
They're pharmacists, and they see bacteria becoming resistant to medicine, so they're not going to deny evolution like this guy just because Adam was 30-foot men.
Well, like
absolutely, they separate their, they've got their spiritual beliefs as their personal stuff, and they keep it separate from the science. And there are a lot of religious people that do that, and credit to them for making that proper delineation. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're not dunking on religious people in general here. We're talking about idiots like Subboor in particular, but.
And Debsky and all these others from the Discovery Institute, because they're charlatans. That's it.
Oh yeah, every single one. And if anyone doesn't know, I mean, check out Professor Dave Explains. He does so many good debunks on these.
He's actually what inspired me into gin and tonic as well, because I used his stuff for like calculus and chemistry growing up when I was doing my undergrad.
And he also trashed Subboor. I think Quran Only fans put a comment about him getting trashed, I think, by Subboor, or maybe he didn't put it in this one, but I mean, he came up against Subboor and absolutely humiliated him. So check out Professor Dave Explains channel if you've never watched
Subboor. Even I trashed him. I made a video reacting to his I don't know, presentation or what it was on why evolution is so wrong. This was the same thing where Aaron Ra reacted to. And then this led to them afterwards having a debate where he got thrashed completely and utterly, and Aaron Ra wiped the floor with him, and he still came back and said, "Yeah, I won."
Everyone has. I mean, everyone's beaten, and he seems to think he's never lost a debate, never lost a discussion. And he loses every single time.
Everybody and their dog have thrashed him.
I mean, I'd say if lay people can do it, then scientists certainly can. And he's just so delusional. But anyway, let's hear some more of his delusion.
Making these short clips, isn't it better for you to defend your position rather than reacting to YouTubers online?
No.
I think that would be a better approach, don't you?
What do you mean, rather than reacting to YouTube? I mean, as I say, when I looked at the original clip, it's obviously somebody's just shown Dawkins a bunch of kind of creationist claims, and he's just dealing with them one by one. It's not like again, like Mohammed Hijab, in one of the other clips that he responds to, he starts off by saying, well, whoever that person was. So he doesn't even know who Hijab is. It's not like he's doing it as some kind of like, I'm responding to the personality. He's just dealing with the creationist arguments, and he happens to have done it in a YouTube video. I mean, if you're going to critique that, which is your entire so-called career, is doing that kind of thing, Subboor, then again, it's just hypocrisy on your part. Idiots. Anyways.
What happened before the Big Bang is a standard layman question, and physicists tend to avoid the question. They tend to say there was nothing before the Big Bang, or some physicists do, not all of them do. It's a debatable point, a debated point, and some physicists think that you cannot even ask the question. It's like saying what's north of the North Pole to some physicists. But this is way, way above the head of Piers Morgan. So absolutely, I'm totally confident in saying he doesn't know. Of course he doesn't know. An agnostic doesn't know, and nobody can prove that there is no God, but one can live one's life on the assumption that there is no God. And in the God delusion, I devised a 7-point scale from one. Let me think. One was totally confident there is a God, and 7 was totally confident that there isn't. And I call myself a 6.9. So I'm agnostic in the same sense as I'm agnostic about the tooth fairy and Mother Goose and the Easter Bunny. But there's no evidence for any of those, and there's no evidence for God either.
Absolutely. I think that's a totally reasonable response. And it was, 6.9. So he's as confident as you could virtually be without being 100% certain, but he still leaves that room open. And how's Subboor going to handle this? Well, let's take a look.
Okay, so you're again going into that shell of, I am not really making these claims. I'm just saying, I don't know. On this particular scale, I'm here. But why are you there? Why are you 6.9? You are 6.9 because you believe design in the biological world is an illusion. You believe the central argument that you make in the God delusion is a valid argument. So you do know these things. So let's not pretend you don't know. And when it came to, say, something like the origin of the universe, you're saying, look, it's like saying what's north of the North Pole. We don't actually know if it's even comprehensible for us. Well, why don't you say the same thing about the origin of life? When you were pushed...
He does!
Well for a start, the origin of life is different to the actual question, which is what came before the Big Bang Theory. Saying that the what is the origin of life may be an incomprehensible question is silly, because obviously it's not going to be an incomprehensible question. It will be something we'll eventually find out, whereas something like the Big Bang Theory, there may be a boundary of knowledge there, or it may be that it just is an incomprehensible question because that's where time starts. So, but another thing is physics is not his field. So obviously he's going to talk with more confidence about evolutionary biology because he's a fucking evolutionary biologist, isn't he? So of course he's going to speak with more confidence. And as a humble scientist, he just says, look, the physicists have various models. Basically go talk to them. But I understand that Piers Morgan knows less than them. That should not be a controversial position. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. It's just... Sorry, does anyone want to cut in here, or is it just going to be re-ranting at Subboor?
No, you're doing a good job.
All right. Well, we've got another minute or two of this, so let's see what else you got.
About this, you actually pointed to Crick's idea of directed panspermia. So what's going on here? Why do you selectively choose when it comes to people responding to you, your particular position, and your other positions, you just ignore them? Why didn't you?
It's called honesty. It's called integrity. It's called, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Those things you don't understand. It's professionalism. It's all these things that you do not comprehend. Oh my God, this is so
But also,
frustrating.
he's not changing his positions. This is the thing. He has been consistently saying that, yes, I am very confident of evolutionary biology, of evolution as the mechanism for the changes we see in life and the development of life because of the enormous amount of evidence for it. And that has always been his position. And in terms of physics, it's basically he will go along because it's not his field. He will go along with whatever is the best model at the time. But he's basically saying, look, you've got to go to the physicists to talk about this. He shouldn't have to have a strong position on a field that's not his. But he's never
everything, yeah.
position. He has never changed his position on that. He's been very consistent, as most honest scientists would be. So it's just Subboor just talking absolute shit at the moment.
The other thing is Subboor still doesn't understand that evolution makes absolutely no claim regarding the origin of life. And this is something that he will simply not comprehend. He's always on about, well, why doesn't he talk about the origin of life? Because this is, look, there's 3 big topics that we don't have sufficient evidence yet. One is origin of the universe, 2 is origin of life, and the origin of consciousness. Those are the 3 things where we still have insufficient evidence that we can go and test it in the lab. But we have ideas, we have models, we have different options, but we do not know with the necessary confidence that would warrant a theory or something that can be justified. And this is why people are being honest. Now, I am very confident with the outcome of my work, but because I'm a scientist, I also say, well, hang on, there could be an assumption that I have made that could be wrong, that there could be a mistake somewhere. But I'm confident enough to present it to a larger audience, and then other companies are prepared to take that as a basis to make huge investments on it based on what I am doing on my work. But I'm never going to say I'm 100% confident that everything in there is 100% correct, because it could be that there is a mistake somewhere, and that is honesty, that is professional, and that is something that you will never understand.
Yeah, and it's also this conflation of origin of life with the development of life as well. He knows
exactly
things, and the thing is, Dawkins does have his view on it, but again, that's not his particular expertise. Again, he doesn't need to understand that within evolutionary biology, you have lots of different disciplines, and some people are actually working out the origin of life. You know, they're looking into RNA and other theories, but that's not every evolutionary biologist. So again, it would make sense, and it's not Dawkins' area of expertise within the field. So he's that humble that again he will have his ideas on it, but he's saying, well, look, there are other evolutionary biologists who are working on this problem. It's not what he's doing, so he's not going to give a definitive answer, especially as you say, because it's still up in the air at the moment. There are different competing theories on it, or hypotheses, should I say.
And Subboor is missing the basics, and yet he's pretending like there's a gap here, there's a gap here. Now I need to question the whole thing. I don't know if you know Otanjiro. He's also doing this. He's used to run around the shows. He's coming to our German show now and trying to do the same thing. And I shut him down, and I said, listen, you can't just go and find some I don't know, some detail which we are still not quite sure about in evolution. Absolutely, there are gaps. But you can't just go, well, because we are not 100% sure here, this means we have to question the whole thing. No.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Right, let's just play the last bit of this and see Subboor's final conclusion.
You say, yes, I do say the universe gives us this idea of design, but design is an illusion, the same as the biological world, and I'm willing to defend this point. Why don't you have a debate about it? Why don't you have a discussion about it rather than reacting in these short clips? Anyone familiar with your work? River Out of Eden, for example, in which you're speaking about morality, you're actually speaking about how DNA has basically given us this illusion of morality, and there is no right, there is no wrong, and there is no God. Again, categorical statements. But when it comes to you defending your position, you go into this agnostic shell, this protective shell, as if you're some sort of reasoned, rational person who's just skeptical about other claims. No, you are categorical about certain claims. So I'm just going to stop him there because there's a couple of points. First of all, to pretend again that Dawkins is not involved in conversations. I went to see Dawkins live last year in London. Okay, so the guy is in his 80s now, and he's still doing freaking world tours. So to say that he's not involved in the conversation and he's just doing like YouTube response videos or something, I mean, what do you expect to? I mean, the fact that he's still doing that at his age is pretty impressive, and he's still very with it. He's an entertaining, an informative guy to watch. But the other thing is also talking about the morality thing. Oh, he's categorically saying there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no morality. He's talking about in this, God-given sense, this objective morality that's supposed to come from on high. Dawkins has been explicit in saying that, yes, like the universe itself doesn't care about you, but obviously we develop as part of evolution moral codes and ethical ways of behaving, and those are important. So he's trying to sort of present is just like, oh yeah, nothing matters. There's no right, no wrong. Well, no, he's just saying it's not. It's come through the evolutionary process, and we do have these morals, and they're very, very needed for human society to function. So this is a straw man argument again.
It is, and he's the one to talk. I mean, how many times have I challenged him? How many times have I challenged hijab, sources, all these guys? And I said to them, okay, let's sit down and talk about your beliefs. And what do? They run like crazy and hide behind mummy's skirts because they're too shit scared to talk to somebody who knows something about the topic. And then they go and they say, well, why doesn't Dawkins do this? Well, because he has common sense. because you can't. This is like talking to a flat Earth guy. What is the point of talking to somebody who believes that Earth is flat? It's pointless. So
Indeed.
would
Yeah.
I go and engage with somebody like that? No, because it's a total waste of time.
Well, this is another thing, isn't it? This is just another expression of him basically saying, "Oh, why doesn't Dawkins talk to me?" This is what this really is. It's the same thing that Hijab does all the time. This kind of rage begging motif where they'll have a go at you and then they're basically crying and shitting their pants because they're not getting any attention. That's the real thing here. He thinks he's some superstar that's going to own Dawkins, and Dawkins, he doesn't even know who you are, and that really sticks in their craw. So. Right, we literally got about 30 seconds, so we'll finish this off because I realise we've already run 40 minutes here, so sorry, this has gone on a bit longer. Let's just do this last bit and then I'll hand over to Nick.
You should defend them. So I hope in this short video, the viewers have seen that you don't actually defend your position very effectively. In fact, you're somebody who hides from public discourse. Now, I've written a book called Dawkins Deselected, The Extinction of New Atheism, and I've actually interviewed many of your opponents, including Alistair McGrath, Keith Ward, and intelligent design proponents. And one of them, who you actually responded to, is actually also somebody, Douglas Sachs, who I interviewed on my channel. So if anybody wants to learn more about Dawkins and why he was deselected in the great battle of the ideas that are taking place today on the internet, then please download the book, have a read, and let me know what you think.
Yeah, so he's been deselected and he doesn't involve himself in any public discourse apart from the constant world tours that he does. And the fact that you've been talking about this guy for 30 years and he doesn't know who you are. Mohammed Hijab just did a video yesterday responding to him and getting triggered in the same way. But apparently Dawkins, nobody's paying any attention to him. I mean, you guys are all fucking obsessed with him. Oh my dear God. Anyways, so yeah, look, I hope you enjoyed that, everyone in chat. I'm sorry it was we probably yapped, especially myself, yapped on a little bit too long on this, and we've eaten a lot into Nick's presentation time. So, Nick, do you want to? I hope you're still awake there, mate. Do you want to put up your presentation and get going on it?
Yep, for sure. Let me just pull it up here. And Stops, I think you're gonna like this episode here. So any questions or concerns you would like to give meantime, I'd be happy to.
Hit it.
Yep, so just let me.
Oh, Subboor, he's such a wally.
So
It's right, okay, there's the document. Why is that not going up? Sorry, folks, bear with me a second. I think I've got your document seems to have disappeared. Can you put it up again, Nick?
yeah, let me just pull it up here.
Sorry about this, folks. A little bit of technical delay, but
yeah, we need to hire more mods.
I need to hire someone to do this for me. I see a conversation going on in chat about Hamza's Den.
Yeah, this is so nice. Hamza's Den. And
yeah, that's a brilliant
Hamza's
name.
Dens. I mean, it's so creative.
Actually,
we had a catastrophe yesterday as well with nothing working, and then microphone problems, and then one guy couldn't be heard, and the thing is, we're used to having these Dawa channels who have millions of people working in the background, and people forget that we're not making money here, and this is not something that we have a lot of people working in the background. No, it's just us.
Indeedy. Right, we are going to get going here. So I'm going to mute myself. I'll hand it over to Nick, and he's going to do his presentation. So go ahead, sir.
For sure. So this topic came out from a really interesting article that I've read, and it's a case study. So basically talking about Islamic ethics, and the article itself is about gene-edited pig kidney transplants, which I found very cool. Now, I do have a friend who is in the medical field and is also of a Muslim background. So I actually asked him to help me out with the research on this, even though he did ask to remain anonymous. So a lot of the research from the Islamic background and the actual analysis of medicine is coming from him. And I did spend almost a good 10, 12, 15 hours with him. I believe 2 weekends or 2 days over a weekend that we spent just looking at various sources and getting his opinion and having him explain to me what the procedures are to help out. We did have a second part in addition to the research on things like cannabinoids and other psychedelics that would help with things like Parkinson's, dementia, PTSD, what have you. And that's something that I would like to do in the future. I do have all the research for this, just to show some mercy for the audience with this presentation here. So any questions, please do let me know, and I'll pause and we'll discuss that. So the first point is, why do I want to talk about this now? It's just that we had CRISPR and other cloning, like Dolly the sheep stops drastic. You might remember that. So cloning, genetic technology we had for the last 20, 25 years. But stuff like that now, a lot of times it's still considered as haram due to decades old technology that hasn't been identified. For example, we just saw Subboor talk about Darwinian evolution that's close to 200 years old and doesn't translate to modern evolutionary biology. And this is life-saving medicine here. People will need transplants, people will need skin grafts, what have you. And with this emerging technology, what is considered allowed, what isn't allowed, and how far should you go to get your health fixed. And if this does offend, just as a disclaimer, if this does offend anyone, I hope you never go to a doctor with modern medicine. Sit at home in your bedroom, die alone, and have some voodoo doctor sprinkle some holy water on you.
Well, you can pray.
Yeah. So there was a gentleman named Rick Slayman. He had a life-saving surgery in Massachusetts. He's 62 years old. He was a diabetic with hypertension issues or high blood pressure for, I believe it was 30 years that he had it. But to a point where for the past 5 years before the surgery, he was having kidney failure and needed a kidney for that 5-year period. There were no for transplants. I don't know how it is in the UK, but in America, Canada, the transplant list is very long. And he was not, just due to complications, he wasn't eligible for another human transplant, and he wasn't able to get credible organs for his condition.
Yeah, just
So
to
what?
confirm, it is very long, the transplant list in the UK, from what I understand. So yeah, same situation.
Yeah. So he actually, what they did was they actually gene edited the pig kidney to be more viable to him, and they transplanted it. He was in such a bad situation where he still had unrelated issues that caused him to pass away, but he was able to function for 7 weeks with that pig kidney, which is longer than any um, animal organ transplant that did happen. So this is very groundbreaking where he was able to function and live. It's just other things due to being a diabetic for so long that caused him to pass away. So just to understand what xenotransplantation is it's living cells or organs, tissues, what have you, from other species to humans, where the cells might be quite similar. And we use pigs most of the time. And pigs are genetically and anatomically similar to humans in many ways. That's why if you, I don't know if they did this for you guys when you guys were young, but for me at least, the police would come into our schools, tell us not to smoke and do drugs, and they would bring the pig lungs to show us, just because of how similar pig lungs are to human lungs there.
I remember the police or getting visits like that about those kind of things. I don't remember them bringing pig bones in, but they could have done. But I don't remember that.
Yeah, for us, they used to bring in pig lungs and just be like, this is, they used to like feed one cigarette, like one pig cigarettes, and then the other one none, and they'd be like, look at how black these lungs are, try blowing into it, it won't expand, well, blow into the healthy ones. This is what your lungs are supposed to do. And they used to have that presentation. But the thing is, the human's immune system will naturally reject pig organs. So it is used as a temporary thing. Let's say the person only has 2 weeks to live. The transplant organ's going to come in 3 weeks. So they use the pig organs or other animal organs to essentially give you that extra week until the organ comes, but it's not a permanent fix just because there are certain triggers from the pig organ that will kill you a bit quicker.
But
But
Nick,
what
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. But they do longer term transplants, don't they? Or is it only ever temporary? I thought they had done longer term
so
ones.
the yeah, and this is the one that is the long term. Before that, it was
Okay.
just a temporary fix because they never found anything that was stable. Um, so with this surgery, why it was so effective is that they used CRISPR to actually remove the rejection triggering genes of that pig kidney, raise it. They removed around 69 genes that would cause rejections, and they actually gave it to this person. And then this was still under the this actually is a part of the compassionate use clause in the actual FDA. So this is FDA approved technology there, and bioethics there. So these are some points for scholars who do consider it haram and why. So most jurists, pigs are not just impure to consume, but in every essence is spiritually impure. So pigs are najis in its entirety, blood, skin, hair, even saliva, and I believe that's also known as like with najis, it's the same as with a semen or urine. So the whole of the pig is seen as very unclean. There,
Nick, Nick, sorry to interrupt. Do we know how? Is this like a majority opinion or is this a fringe opinion amongst the scholars? Do you have any idea which is the dominant view on this?
so this would be more of the dominant because these are fatwas that come right from various majority scholars and such. So this one comes from the direct imam in his book that talks about the pigs. Whereas we also have the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, who mentions that transplants of pig organs is seen as a disrespect to the sacredness of the human form and such. So a lot of the scholars do actually agree with this, but there is a balance on the other side where there are quotes from the Quran. So some of the quotes that they actually do pull up is that he so Quran 2:173, he has only forbidden you dead animals, blood, and flesh of a swine, and that which has been dedicated to other than Allah. But if one is forced by necessity, neither desiring nor transgressing, there is no sin upon him. So a lot of the passages from the Quran do actually say that it is sinful to touch pigs, but if they're allowed to eat it if they're in a dire situation. But that only talks about eating of it. It doesn't actually talk about the medical transplantation because transplantation doesn't actually exist from back in the day.
Yeah, but I think I'd actually agree. I think it's reasonable to kind of use that as a basis to say, well, if you could eat it to survive, then why not apply that to transplant as well? So I think it's a pretty reasonable position to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was actually told is these three things by my friend. He was actually saying that gold is actually forbidden, but there was a gentleman who used a silver nose as a replacement from an accident, and the Prophet actually allowed him to replace it with gold, even though gold is haram. And then cauterization is actually branding with fire is actually disliked. But if there is a treatment for amputees or injuries and such, uh, it is actually allowed. And then there are many Sahih Muslim records that actually show that the Prophet allowed certain cauterization medical procedures there, apparently. So based off of these, a lot of scholars actually do bring up that if it is medically necessary or certain medical treatments that were seen as haram, if they are needed to save your life, they were allowed. So why not bring that precedent to the animal organs for your transplant? So I do have a few scholars here from back in the day who do have various like, so they're from the early ages of Islam, and when they were talking about specifically using pig animals, for example, there was a pig bone used for grafting during surgery. While generally prohibited, he allows it in life-threatening cases when no alternatives exist, and this was specifically for pig bones for grafting in surgery. So pig products by Imam al-Nawawi was actually allowed as a scholar, and there's also other multiple scholars who do mention that if there is an illness that is severe and the cure is not available except through something that might be unlawful, it does become permissible there.
So you're allowed to contradict Allah if it's really necessary.
Yeah.
Good to
Do you
know.
think they get around the inheritance error stops?
Yeah, true.
So yeah, we did actually research the four schools of thought. Quite surprisingly, the Shafi and the Hanbali are a bit more relaxed, whereas the Hanafi is a lot more cautious, saying that pigs are impure and you can only use it if it's life-threatening. Whereas the Hanafi, the only scholars that I was able to find for the Shafi and Hanbali schools of thought were basically quoting the Quranic passage that says necessity makes the prohibited permissible. Yeah, and then the Shias, there's multiple Ayatollahs who actually on their website mention that they are allowed when impure substances become a part of a new entity. For example, organ transplants and bone grafts, if they are modified with DNA changes, they do become a new substance and not from the original. So that would be liked. And with the Ayatollah Said, he actually does have this specifically on his website that we pulled a quote from. Same thing with the Ayatollah Khomeini. He actually specifically addresses the xenotransplantation, and he supports that the principle of human life actually takes precedence over the dietary laws, because there isn't anything that specifically talks about using animals for humans outside of a few scholars. And then with the modern as well. So any questions until this point?
So it seems the Shias are a little bit more forward thinking than in general. They seem to be a bit less cautious on it, if I'm not mistaken, if I've read that right. And some of the Sunni schools are no, unless you're at death's door, don't do it. Just suffer. That seems to be my reading of it anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah, you see there's a lot of things.
for sure. And one of the things that I want to we'll probably discuss this at the end as well, is let's say rubbing alcohol and such, are they allowed kind of thing. But as here, the Fatwa Council in 2021 actually permits xenotransplantation involving pigs when no human or halal or animal organs are available, saying that saving life is a higher objective of Sharia, but it must be clinically proven that it will work. And then the International Islamic Fiqh Academy, the OIC, they had 2 sessions that they actually addressed this. And in the 2004 declaration, they actually mentioned if a organ, even pig-derived, undergoes complete transformation, it's no longer considered najis. So if we are using CRISPR to make that change, then it is allowed to be used.
And that's surprising. So that's fairly forward thinking. I have to give them some credit for that.
And then the FIC Council of North America, and they do approve life-saving transplants, but we couldn't find exact quotes, but more so they were trying to beat around the bush on this topic. But the UK Imams and Scholars Board, they actually provided guidance on the particular case that we talked about, and they specifically said that because of the ethical review and patient consent of this, they actually support him actually having that, and you're allowed to use it. So that's my presentation on this topic, but any points that we want to like revisit or such?
Yeah,
No, I think it was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. No, that was really interesting, and I have to say, I'm pleased to see that, generally speaking, they are kind of they're for using it. So, if it's going to save someone's life, which is, I have to say, that is better than some religious groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff, who won't even do a blood transfusion and things like that. So, you know what? I credit where it's due. I think they're relatively forward thinking on it. So I thought it was going to be far more reactionary than that. So I'll give a point to Islam this week. Oh no, we're not doing points anymore, are we? So, Nick, what about the alcohol rubbing situation that you mentioned before in terms of using that? What is the position on that?
So that's one of the things that we couldn't actually find any points on alcohol, because typically medical alcohol isn't actually ingested. More so it's external use, which a lot of scholars actually say that there isn't any issue. But the issue does come when you were trying to use psychedelics for certain kinds of treatments, because a lot of the medical treatments for certain things that psychedelics will, or these kind of narcotics do help for, is actually mental health, which a lot of the people were saying that you got to try exorcisms first.
So that's interesting. So if you don't ingest the alcohol, you can use it. So does that mean that Muslims can do wine tasting because you spit it out afterwards, don't you?
That's probably a possibility there, but it's more so with like the rubbing alcohol and sanitizer, because we do know it does kill off the bacteria, and you're not directly putting it into your mouth there.
Yeah, I know the wine tasting thing is not a medical thing, but I was just thinking, just in slightly off the topic, but that I was just thinking there's a new business model there, halal wine tasting tours or something like that. You do it in South Africa stops, there's a lot of good wine country down there, isn't there? So that could be a new
And
thing.
a lot of wine tasting, but I've never heard of the halal wine tasting tour. That's a new one.
Cool. No, I mean, I haven't particularly got any other. I mean, are there any other? The only other thing I can think of, are there any other kind of medical procedures or medicines that aren't kind of surgery related or alcohol rubbing that has caused any kind of moral dilemmas, or is it just these things? Are there any other medical products that might cause a problem?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones actually is with that I was researching is cannabis, which is seen as quite illegal, but it doesn't actually cure anything, but it helps ease the pain of certain things like cancer. It does ease the pain of something like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. It stops a lot of their shaking and such. It doesn't make them better, but it helps mitigate that stuff. And because it's technically, you're not curing anything, you're just mitigating pain. And there's alternatives like opioids, which have a lot more negative side effects than a THC oil. They're still more for the opioids rather than using the cannabinoids there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that point is something that I specifically talk about because of my chronic pains and injuries. I actually am an avid cannabis user. I don't get high regularly. That might be a lie. I get high quite regularly, but it's only to like mitigate pain and such. So as someone who knows how went from being addicted to opioids to transitioning to cannabinoids, I know the kind of change that does happen there, and it's very beneficial. And people who don't actually go through that transition won't understand how beneficial it is.
Mm. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I've got no other questions. I don't know if Stops. You got anything else that you want to throw in? Or
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive, especially since you went through the individual madhabs as well.
yeah, that was very good. Yeah, well, unless there's any more questions in the chat, or Nick, if you wanted to add anything else to it, I'll we can wrap things up now.
So my guest, he might be more comfortable coming in the future as well, just when his personal life does settle down. So I'm actually saving the cannabis stuff for when he jumps in, because he actually does a lot of the mental health work as well with the people he deals with. And then he actually seen the side effects of something like PTSD or actual other mental health issues where cannabinoids and psychedelics like mushrooms or LSD do really help, or ayahuasca trips and such that really do help people. And we also have a lot of sources with like early Christians were actually using psychedelics for a lot of their art and poetry to help out. So.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, I mean, a follow-up presentation then on that specifically. Yeah, we'll look forward to that whenever you and it's Orphifies King, isn't it? Is the your friend who's been helping with this? Yeah, whenever you're ready to do a second part to this, yeah, we'll do it. That should be great. Oh, we got a comment here. Imagine you need life-saving treatment and you've got to wait for the go-ahead from a bunch of crusty old greybeards poring over ancient texts. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a fair point, but at least they generally have ruled on this to say that most of this stuff is okay. So, I mean, yeah, but if you were waiting for the conference and you needed this procedure, that must have been pretty horrible. But at least I've got there now.
One thing that always gets me is that none of these guys are actual doctors that give out these fatwas. They're always ayatollahs, muftis, and such. They're not actual medical doctors that give these.
Well, that's in the best Dawa tradition, isn't it? Why know anything about the topic that you're talking about? Let's just quote the Quran now. Oh dear. Anyways, yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Nick. That was really good. Thank you to everyone in the chat tonight. I've enjoyed your comments and everything. We will be returning next week, but it's going to be on a different day because I can't do Friday. So Stops has agreed to join me on, what was it? Did we say Tuesday or was it Wednesday? So I think it was Tuesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday. Beg your pardon. Wednesday, right. So yeah, we'll be back Wednesday next week, and yeah, we will probably have another Dawa video or something like that. But yeah, any last words from you guys?
Hopefully you guys enjoyed my shorter presentation rather than the Kashmir stuff.
No, it's great. Look, I like the
Yes.
Kashmir one too, but yeah, I thought it was great, this presentation. I think it's nice to keep it kind of shorter and sweeter, and I thought it was excellent. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. We will see you on Wednesday, 8 p.m. UK time. Have a great weekend, everyone, and good night to you all.